This is Garrett, tearstojoyministries.org. This video is called, Is God an Indian Giver? That's correct. That's the question I'm asking. Is God an Indian giver? Now, first of all, what is an Indian giver? What is? Well, it's a person who gives a gift or a present to someone and then takes it back. Like, say, for example, you buy a brand new guitar for your husband, but then 1 week later you demand it back. Well, you're an Indian giver. Do you see what I mean now? Let's do one more. Let's say that your boss at work gives you a raise, and then 1 week later, he takes the raise back. Well, he's an Indian giver. Now, let me ask you this question. Is God, the holy, almighty, incomparable, super powerful God, is he a petty little Indian giver? Is he? Do you know that most Christians worldwide say God is an Indian giver? I'm talking about most Christians. Most of Christianity thinks that God is an Indian giver. Now let me explain why. Most Christians believe that God gives a person salvation for all of eternity, but then a short while later, they actually believe that that person can lose their salvation. They actually believe a short time later that God might take away that person's salvation. And this is preached all over the world. Most Christians believe that you can lose your salvation. And when they preach that, they're actually calling God an Indian giver. How petty is that? This is how most Christians believe. Okay, listen to this. They hear that one of their friends wants to accept Jesus Christ. So they hop in the car, they go pick up their friend, they take him to go get some iced tea somewhere or some lemon water, maybe at a cafe or a Starbucks or wherever. And they lead him through some kind of prayer for salvation or whatever. And they tell their friend, you're now saved for eternity. Aren't you so happy? You're not going to hell anymore. Aren't you so happy? This is how they talk to their friend. And everyone is happy and there's joy, and it's a great time when God uses you to lead someone to his son, Jesus Christ. It's just a great, great time. But now, 1 week later, these same two friends are on the phone, and the first friend is telling his friend, the brand new Christian, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, you could lose your salvation. Oh my gosh. This garbage is being preached all over the world. God is not an Indian giver. You are the Indian giver. God does not take back salvation for eternity. You are the one trying to take it back, and you need to stop. Why are you telling people that God will save their soul for all of eternity, only to tell them 1 month later, 6 months later, that they can lose their salvation? Do you know this cannot be found in the Bible? It cannot be found in the Bible that you could lose your salvation. What's happening is certain scriptures that Jesus says, certain parables, and certain scriptures when Paul is speaking, are being misinterpreted. They're being misunderstood. And because they're being misunderstood, Christians are believing that God takes away salvation once he gives it to a person. And when you believe that and when you preach that, you are making God no better than a petty, silly, childish Indian giver. That's what you are making the master of the universe out to be. And you should be ashamed. And you should repent for this terrible preaching when you tell other chosen ones that they can lose their salvation when they can't. God is not an Indian giver. You are the Indian giver. Yes, you Christian. You see, you drove and you picked up your friend and you took him to Starbucks and you got some iced tea and you led him to trust in Jesus Christ to save his soul. And your friend said yes. And this is a glorious, glorious time. Then a couple months later, you tell your friend that he could lose his salvation. You don't have the right to say that. You are not in control of salvation. You have no authority to say that. You have no power to say that. And what you're doing is you're hurting your friend terribly. Your friend is now terrified all the time that he or she might lose their salvation, and they live in terror. You are actually preaching what the demons are whispering to you. You are preaching a demonic doctrine that God is an Indian giver, and he's not. He's better than that. He's holier than that. He's smarter than that. He's wiser than that pettiness. Now, yeah, you give gifts and you take them back when your girlfriend gets angry at you, but God doesn't do that. God is so far above that pettiness. He is so far above that form of immaturity, of taking gifts back once he gives them. God is so much more loving than that. He's so much more righteous than that. When you tell people, when you tell chosen ones that they can lose their salvation, you are making God out to be a petty, immature, childish Indian giver. And you should be ashamed of yourself. Ask God to fix up your theology. Ask him to fix up your way of thinking, please.